knowledges that we don't actually valorize in our classrooms and don't bring them into the classrooms enough. And so, for example, we do in our work have learned over time that native communities, indigenous communities, have kind of an established way year on year on year of how to deal with floods, how to deal with disasters, how to deal with heat. And I think it's worth thinking about how we bring some of that knowledge into our classrooms, to also think a little bit about how we can teach respect of other forms of knowledge, and not just what is taught in sort of classrooms and schools, but some of these kinds of knowledge systems are not codified. They're passed on from generation to generation, and I think that we do also have a responsibility to be able to kind of harness that knowledge, not just for ourselves, but also for generations to come. And I think that it's really well worth thinking about how we bring in. So, an example from Bombay, where I grew up, is, the Koli communities have known for years how to deal with erosion and flooding at the coast. But, we rarely tap into that kind of knowledge, and that's rarely brought into the classroom at all. And I think that brings me to my fourth point, is to think of the classroom as not being just within the four walls of the room, but to think about how we can kind of expand that beyond the boundaries of just the class, and bring in other kinds of knowledge, other ways and places of learning, to be able to sort of inculcate this kind of idea of lifelong learning, because some of these processes and learning about sustainability isn't something that happens just at one shot or at one time, but it's something, like I said at the start, for us to be able to build and kind of sustain over a long period of time, and make it almost a way of life and a way of thinking about it, and just a shift in perspective altogether. And finally, I'd like to close actually by echoing something that Jagdish said, in his talk as well, is that we need to start thinking about how we can engage beyond the school itself. And how do we engage with our local neighborhoods? How do we engage with communities that are not necessarily, ones that we see as being part of our teaching and learning environments, but to also expand, the engagement that we have, not just as educators, but as stakeholders in an urban ecosystem, and to think a little bit about how we can bring a lot of that, both for us to take out as educators and as administrators, and contribute to sort of local neighborhood economies, but also how can we bring some of that back into the classroom. And I think that the one of the ways in which we've often talked about it and tried to practice is to actually be mindful of consumption. So reducing consumption, reusing as much as possible, talking about repair, talking about fixing things that are broken, rather than sort of buying new immediately. And so to be able to encourage and inculcate a culture of reusing, repair, and eventually at some point, if repair is no longer possible, then recycling. And these are things that are, again, possible to do at very small scales within our own homes, within our own classrooms. But I think what I'd like to emphasize is that it isn't something that's a quick fix. It isn't something that we're going to be able to kind of implement immediately and change. It's going to need and require a lot of commitment on our part. It's going to need and require a lot of integration into other people's lives, into other communities. And it does take a lot of work, but it is absolutely possible to do. And I think that it's something that we owe, generations to come, to be able to kind of hold on to, whatever we've got in terms of, the environment, nature, ecosystems, only because if for no other reason, in the absence of those, we ourselves will find it very difficult to survive. So thank you all for having me, and I hope we see you again here soon.
Thank you, Jagdish and Neha, for bringing our attention to the importance of biodiversity and how we can maintain this biodiversity within our cities through engagement with schools and educational campuses, and creating habitats to accommodate the birds and creatures that live amongst us. And also how to integrate the ideas of sustainability into our interactions and conversations with young children. Once again, thank you so much. Shall we take a quick coffee break and be back in 25 minutes? Thank you.